Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Max from our scouting group here to lead us in the pledge. Max, come up here to the podium.
There you go.
All rise.
I pledge allegiance,
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll take approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the council meeting minutes for August 27th, 2019.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, before we move on to the special recognition, I want to take a moment and acknowledge the Boy Scouts that are in our audience this evening. I'd like to have each one stand and give us their name and troop number, starting with you, Max. Thank you, Max. Okay.
My name is Luke Bowers, and I'm from Troop 494.
I'm Calder Yosby, and I'm from Troop 494.
I am Sam Noodle, and I'm from Troop 494. I'm Paul Kessler, Senior Patrol Leader, and I'm from Troop 494.
I'm Richard Kissel, I'm from Troop 494. I'm Henry Green, and I am from Troop 494.
I'm Connor Toad, and I'm from Troop 494.
I'll stand. So I'm Mark Kessler, and we're just south of Murray Park, which is where we're at in the historic district there. So thank you for having us tonight.
There's one more scout that didn't stand.
It was a little shy.
Okay.
Dave Briggs.
No problem. All right, thank you. Appreciate that, young men. Now we'll move on to our special recognition. Murray City Council Employee of the Month, Paul Adams, firefighter and paramedic, Assistant Chief, no, it'll be Joey Middleman will be presenting. Joey, you and Brett Hales.
If we can ask Paul, come on up. Paul, Bill. Paul. Come up here. We want you up close in front. Joey said you'd like to be up front, so we want to have you up front. He says he loves the spotlight. He just likes this stuff. We know Joey. That's Joey. So, well, we as a council just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize you. And you've been with the department for 18 years?
Correct.
18 years. That's awesome. And so we started this program about 6 years ago, and I'll let Joey do a little more of the presentation, but we wanted to recognize you, Paul, and there's a certificate for you. Your name's going to go back on that wall there for the next 100 years, probably a few more years till we get the new building. And then this is probably the most important thing. There's $50 in that. Now, did you come with someone that probably deserves that $50 more than you? All right, I'd like to give that. I'm always careful. Boy, Paul was quick. He pointed right at you. I mean, that was the quickest response I've ever seen. Anyway, so as a council, Paul, we just wanted to recognize you and let you know how much we appreciate your service to the city. And we couldn't do it without you. The first responders are huge. And so thank you so much. So from the council, let's give Paul a round of applause. Thanks. Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks. If you'll stay up here with me, Paul, I got to make you blush just a little bit. So Mayor and City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys tonight about Paul Adams, or some people also know him as Patch Adams, and there might be some correlation to this a little bit. If you go back, he was hired in 2001 by Chief Camp, so Chief Camp made another great hire here. And one of our favorite things is I start talking, and the scouts, you guys will want to kind of pay attention to this too. especially on the dedication, because you guys are each wearing a uniform tonight. And Patch is also wearing, and I know his name is Paul, but we call him Patch, a uniform. And that uniform he holds to the highest regard that's physically out there when he cares for his patients. And Patch went through paramedic school back in 2005. And since then, he's carried a whole list of recent things. But I want to tell you about some of the calls that Patch has been on that I've actually worked with him as a paramedic on. And he has by far the greatest patient bedside manner that I have ever seen. And I think he picked that up a little bit off a guy named Jeff Griffith that was his paramedic partner for many, many years. And there has never been a patient that Patch has ever offended that he hasn't just reached out and just cared for, given a hug to, gone the extra mile. And recently we had a situation that was a family, I can't go into too much of the details, that really needed some extra care, that had a situation that was really poor that had happened to them. And he had reached out and went the extra mile to try and get them a little bit extra help on the state level, on our local level, and just trying to connect them with the right resources when you get in that depression mode or when you have an unfortunate situation happen to you. And so that's one example of his patient care. His next example is he spent the last 6 years and 10 months running our cadet program. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video of herding cats. It's a lot what Patch has done with herding cats over the last 6 years and 10 months. And he does such a fine job. Some of these kids that are cadets don't come from a great father figure home or a great background. And that's where he really connects, and he bridges that gap into their adulthood. And I've seen that take place on 3 different occasions with our cadets, not to bring their names up. But I'm telling you, the work that Patch has done is beyond just the fire department going on EMS and fire calls. It's actually shaping the community of employees out there. So I just want to say thanks a lot, Patch. We appreciate what you do, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So. Do you want to introduce your family that's here?
Chief Camp, Mayor Camp, thank you for hiring me into this department. I hope in the 18 years I've been here that I haven't let you down. City Council, thank you for your continued support of our fire department and its goals. Appreciate that. My family, if you could stand, please. This is my best friend for the last 28, almost 29 years, and wife of 24 years, Manessa Adams. Being in the fire service, I think everybody back there knows how special our spouses are. They take on a lot, and I truly appreciate it. This is my oldest daughter, Isabel Adams. She's 21 years old and a junior at the University of Utah. Oh, senior, sorry. Yeah, she's been moving fast. And then this is Rowan. He's my middle child. He's 18 years old and a freshman at Westminster this year. So he's off on new adventures. My youngest daughter, 9-year-old Adeline, isn't with us this evening. She has a school fair. And anybody that's been to a fair knows there are priorities. So she's not here this evening. But anyways, that's my family. Thank you, family. You're awesome.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Now move on to our next item on the agenda, the citizen comments. These comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Step to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make sure you fill out the required form. You may be here for one of the public hearings. If you're here for one of the public hearings, you don't need to speak during the citizen comment period. That's for other matters outside of the public hearing items. So, do we have anyone here that would like to address the group?
Should the public hearings be for like the rezoning?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Well, seeing none, we'll move on. Move on to the consent agenda. Item 1, consider confirmation of the mayor's reappointment of Mildred Horton to the Murray City History Advisory Board for a 3-year term to expire August 1st, 2022. And item 2, consider confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Lynette Lloyd to the Murray City History Advisory Board for a 3-year term to expire August 1st, 2022. Mayor Camp presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, pleased to reappoint Mildred Horton. I didn't see Mildred here this evening, but many of you, if not all of you, know Mildred. She's been a public servant here in Murray for many, many years, and we're happy to reappoint her this evening. I also would like to introduce Lynette Lloyd. And if you were able to look at the resume that accompanied the packet, and you'll see that she's very highly qualified to be on the History Advisory Board. And Lynette's back here. Would you mind standing, Lynette? She was the assistant to the director of the Division of Utah State History at the Utah Historical Society for a number of years, and we're very pleased to present her this evening for a member of the History Advisory Board.
Great, that's great. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that, Lynette, and want to thank you for your service. We'll now move to our public hearings. There'll be,
I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay. I'll second that.
Motion and seconded.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Okay, now we'll move on to our public hearings. The first public hearing item is to consider an ordinance relating to land use that amends the zoning map for the property located at 284 East, 4500 South in Murray City, Utah, from GO, General Office Zoning District, to the CD, Commercial Development Zoning District. Melinda Greenwood presenting.
You guys are going to get tired of us tonight. This is what we refer to as public hearing palooza. We have 4 public hearings in a row. The first one we're here for tonight is a zone map amendment, and yes, it is only for a zone map amendment. For Hidden Treasures, this is located at 284 East, 4500 South, and the zone map amendment request is to go from general office to commercial development. Here you see an aerial that just shows a highlight of the property there at 284 East. It's a 0.35 acre property and has had previous uses in there, including a retail store, a massage establishment, and the applicant here is looking to apply for a conditional use permit if the rezone is approved, and we'll put in a secondhand thrift store. So right now we have what's shown there is the current zoning map. It's currently zoned as general office, and the future land use map shows that we do anticipate having that come to general commercial. So the zone map amendment request is consistent with the general plan and the future land use categories. So here's just another look at the property, an aerial view of a site plan. It's, as I said, it's been existing over there for many years and has held many different businesses in here. There's just a look at kind of the anticipated layout of the floor. I believe the applicant doesn't plan on changing anything in the interior. It's already set up to the way that that will work for the secondhand thrift store. Here's just a few views of the property. It is on the south side of 4500 South. It's this little gray house there. And then, so what we have done, we've taken this to the Planning Commission, and they have brought forward a positive recommendation for the zone map amendment tonight based on these reasons. The rezoning of the property is supported by the future land use map to go into the general commercial. It shouldn't have any negative impact on the surrounding properties. the infrastructures or utilities. The requested rezone has also been considered based on the characteristics of the site and those of the surrounding area. And we find that it's in harmony with the 2017 Murray City General Plan. And it supports the goals of that general plan. And lastly, the proposed amendment to the zoning map from general office to commercial is a natural expansion of what's the established commercial area over there. So again, we do recommend that the City Council approve the zone map amendment based on the positive recommendation coming from the Planning Commission and the staff recommendations. So that property at 2D4 East, 4500 South would go from general office and be rezoned to commercial development. I don't know if the applicant, Dana Williams, is she here this evening? So I don't know if the applicant would have anything to add, but I'll turn the time over to her if she does. Or if you have any questions for her or for me.
Any questions from council? Okay, the applicant?
Nope, I think she covered it all.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. No comments from the general public?
You gotta open it up for public hearing.
What's that?
You have to open for public.
I just said any comments from the general public. This will be our public hearing portion. Okay. No comments from the general public. We'll take it back to the council for discussion. Okay, if we don't have any for discussion, could we have a motion?
Just before discussion, I'd just like to thank Melinda for educating us on this, and we've already talked about it at the Committee of the Whole, and I really appreciate it, and I feel comfortable with the staff recommendations, so thank you.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the ordinance relating to the land use amends the zoning map for the property located at 284 East, 4500 South, Murray City, Utah, from the GO, General Office Zoning District, to the CD, Commercial Development Zoning District.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Jennifer?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We'll now move to item number 2. Consider an ordinance amending section 17.82.050, 17.82.080, and 17.82.090 of the Murray City Municipal Code related to small wireless facilities.
Okay, so we did discuss this at the Committee of the Whole meeting on was it the 1st of September? We went over some details from there, but I'll go over them again since this is a public hearing. Essentially, about 18 months ago or so, we put into place a small wireless facility ordinance. And as always happens, pretty much immediately after that, the federal government changed some of the regulations on that. And so we are now going through the process of updating that ordinance to become compliant with federal laws and also in some of the changes to state laws as well. So there's basically 3 categories that the changes can be broken down into. And the first category is aesthetics. The requirements now that any aesthetic requirements of screening or kind of disguising these poles has to be very obvious as to what those requirements are, and so we've put language in place to help that be as straightforward as we can. The next category that require the changes is the shot clocks. Essentially, we have less time to approve these than we had previously. We used to have 30 days to determine the completeness of an applicant or an application. We now have 10 days. There is 60 days to review the process to do a review for a co-location application, and then we have 90 days to review and process an application for a new small cell wireless facility. Now, the last part is they changed the way we can charge fees. So we used to have a percentage of the gross revenues was the way we were charging those fees for the franchise agreements. But we can now only do an annual fee that would be $250. So we've already taken this to the Planning Commission as well. They forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council and recommend approval based on the findings that the amendments will keep our land use ordinance in compliance with state code and federal statutes that have changed since we first enacted the ordinance. And the proposed amendments will also maintain a balance between requirements of the wireless industry and the goals and objectives of Murray City General Plan and our land use ordinances. You have any questions?
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Is that $250 per device?
No, it's up to 25 devices. So it's substantially, I think, less in the revenues, but if they go over 25, then we can charge an additional $250. Is that correct? Bryant's given me a look.
I'm not sure if you're thinking of the application fee or the poll fee.
Oh.
I believe it is $250 per poll if they install a poll, which would be an annual fee.
Oh, the franchise agreement is the $250. Okay.
I've got a couple of concerns. I think I've said this more than once. I think the shot clocks, and I know the state's made the law, so we don't have a lot, but I still want to get it on the record. As a municipal with our own utility, replacing utility poles is not that easy, particularly where we have distribution under transmission. I can see us chewing up 90 days just redesigning a pole to throw another piece of hardware on it. The other is we're running out of climbing space. You know, we're hanging all kinds of stuff on these poles now, and everybody goes, oh, well, we're using bucket trucks anyway. Well, if we get hit with a big one, and, you know, as I've said again before, I moved here in '73, and it was going to be, man, in 50 years. Well, that means I only have 4 more years, I think, before the big one hits, and we can't get our bucket trucks out of the sheds. Guys are going to have to climb the poles, get the lights back on, and I'm concerned about the hazard that creates. So is this in compliance with the National Electric Safety Code on all of these issues for clearances? Because that's huge for us. Yeah, I like it when I get crickets on a safety issue. Okay. I'm always thrilled with the state for that, because nobody asks them that question either.
So really all these do is keep us in compliance with the state and federal law. We have very little input, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions for Melinda? Okay, in a minute we're going to go to the public for the hearing process. No more questions from the council? Okay, we're going to go to the general public. If you have a comment or a question, come to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay? I saw a hand out there. Did you have a question? Just come up to the podium and state your question, and we'll get you an answer.
I'm curious to hear from, I suppose, either this, I'm assuming you're the city attorney, or anybody else, if any numbers have been crunched about what the revenue loss is going to be, and what the possible knock-on effects in terms of safety issues are going to be as well. I hadn't.
Could you give us your name and
Oh, sorry.
city?
My name is Ola Robinson. I live in Murray.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Anyone want to field that question?
Linda can answer that, but I know that she said it sounds like we're not going to be. Go ahead, Melinda.
Melinda, do you have an answer?
I'm just
for
curious
this?
about impact, and I
Right.
hadn't thought
Okay.
about that angle on it too.
Go ahead, Melinda.
To answer the question about the revenues, no, we have not. We have not run numbers on that. but we don't have very many of these facilities existing within our community yet. So that would be kind of difficult to calculate anyway. This is a newer technology, so we could look at that, but again, we have very few existing. So, but to give a little bit of clarification, so there would be we can charge an application fee for each of these as they come in. So there would be that revenue, which essentially covers the cost of staff time to review that and process that application. And then there's the franchise fee, which is what I was speaking about earlier. To answer your question, Councilmember Brass, about the compliance with the National Electric
Safety Code, NESC.
So that would be reviewed each site specific. As an application comes in, that would be part of our process that we go through, is to see what requirements are for that specific site.
Okay. Anyone else with any questions or desire to share with the group? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and bring it to the City Council for questions and discussion.
I guess the irony is there's not a lot to question or discuss because it is a state law, so we are required to come into compliance. Like I said, I stated my concerns.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Brass. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amending section 17.82.050, 17.82.080, and 17.82.090 of the Murray City Municipal Code related to small wireless facilities.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. Jennifer?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Okay, we'll now move on to item 3, consider an ordinance related to land use. It amends the general plan to include a small area plan for the Murray Central Station area. Melinda?
We're officially halfway through public hearing palooza. I'm actually going to turn this item over to Jared Hall. The work on the Murray Central Station small area plan was actually done prior to me being here, and he was here through that process, so he is the resident expert. I'll let him take the floor.
I'd like the record to show, and if someone could send a note to my wife that someone referred to me as an expert, that would be great. So this is what we call the Murray Central Station Small Area Plan. So, and it's going to be adopted, if it's adopted tonight, as an amendment to our general plan that we've referred to a couple of times, the 2017 general plan. We did the study with a grant from the Wasatch Front Regional Council called the Transportation Land Use Connection Grant. So it's money that we can get to do studies to create better land uses and more accommodating land uses around the transit stations. This one around the Murray Central Station, near the hospital, where the front runner lines and the tracks lines come close together and actually share a platform. It's the only place outside of Salt Lake proper where that happens, besides Salt Lake itself. So the study area, as you can see on the map here in front of you, is quite large. We did that on purpose. It's a big, important station. We didn't want to miss anyone. So the impact to the station may not actually reach as far as that study area, but we did want to include quite a large area and make sure we didn't miss any data, because a lot of this plan was going to be the gathering of data about that site and how it could be developed and how it could best be developed and how we can help guide that in the future. So leading into that, the purpose of the project was to assess that built environment and the development conditions. As many of you are aware, the station there at Central Station, Murray Central, is the former site of the smelter site. So there's some contaminants, there's some environmental problems there. So we knew that was going to limit development in the area, and we wanted to be sure that we understood that well, so that we had that information available for developers as they come in, or for UTA as it looks at redeveloping that station, et cetera. We wanted to understand that environment and also assess the market potential. We have some more data about that in the plan. The plan, as I said, it's available on the city's website through a link. It is kind of data heavy. There's a lot of information there, as well as some goals and things like that. But we wanted to also then, in these last two sections, understand those connections in and out of the station, how people are using it, so we can better accommodate that and improve that, and then provide ideas and policies for the future planning and development based on those new understandings. So it did give us some guiding principles in general that are all contained in that plan to balance the creation of a quality station, align the planning and design of the station with the general plan, and some of these other things. Also, kind of significantly, just to point it out, the consultants that we used the grant money to pay to help us do this study did point out that we needed to leverage the transit investments that are already there. It's a well-used station, over 10,000 people a day getting off and on trains and onto buses. They've got people working at the hospital coming in and out. But as in terms of environment, it's not very friendly for pedestrians and that kind of thing. So the consultant's main point was you could really capitalize on this station better as the future rolls out and UTA makes reinvestments. We want to be able to provide them with things that would guide those reinvestments. So I didn't want to put too many slides in, so just a couple of examples right out of the plan itself. All those guiding principles have little sections within the plan, and this is just an example. So the environmental principle, we wanted to make sure we were protecting human health and the environment. In this case, that meant that the old smelter site was not going to be able to have residential development right on it. So typically with transit-oriented developments like this, we try to put as many people as we can as close to that station as we can. That keeps them off the roads and clears up traffic congestion. It helps with pollution and those environmental impacts. We're not going to be able to do that. As a result of this study, we found that we're not going to be able to do that at this station because the contamination is too bad, and it's capped and it's okay, but the EPA will not let us disturb that cap so that there won't be any danger to human health. Right now it's safe. If we try to put residential there, they don't consider that safe, so we won't be moving forward with that. Another finding just based on that kind of thing, this is actually what I was just talking about. The environmental analysis kind of eliminated our ability to do residential there. There are lots of other findings like this in that plan. We don't have time really in the meeting to go over all of those, but like I said, it is available on the website, and you've all seen it for a number of months now as well, and we've had conversations in the committee of the whole. Just to point out, there are all these kind of key findings throughout the plan. After we assessed all those different things like the environmental impacts and the market availability, what the market will bear there, et cetera. Another thing that we did learn was that IMC's properties we kind of eliminated from the plan. They're not ready to talk about what they intend to do with their area that has some contaminants as well. And that there are lots of, it was pointed out during the plan that there are lots of ways that the outlying areas can be developed. So we can develop residentially around it, and we're currently zoned well for that with mixed-use zoning, et cetera. And it was pointed out also that the Vine Street transformation needs to be aligned with the current transportation planning visions. Vine Street is not really a focus of the station area, which is a little odd because it carries a lot of traffic. The station can relate better to Vine Street. So building from that, the consultants pointed out that there ought to be some alternatives presented. We wanted to not dictate to UTA what they might want to do in redevelopment, but give them some options and point out in a couple of sort of illustrative plans what they might do better, like orient to Vine Street, et cetera. And I'll get back to that in just a second. Just an interesting thing that came out of our market study as well. This is something kind of just fun to know about the area. In the study area itself, there are 12,298 jobs, roughly, just contained in that study area. Of those 12,298 jobs, in 2015 anyway, 66 people worked in those jobs and lived within the study area. It's not a very big number compared to that. Employed in that study area and living outside of the whole area, 12,232. Living in the area and employed somewhere else, 1,386. That kind of pattern is bigger in Murray in general. So this kind of pointed out to us when doing this small area plan, one of the things that the general plan in 2017 had pointed out, that we don't have as much employment as we would expect within the city for a city of our size. We lose a lot of people working outside of the city. That means traffic, that means congestion problems. If we can create employment centers within the city, we should take those opportunities. This just kind of pointed that out again. Going back to the station area and kind of the illustrative plans that were created as a part of this plan, they were based on these guiding principles: connecting the station, transforming Vine Street, and reconfiguring the station to emphasize the walkability and make it a little more pedestrian friendly. In keeping with that, the consultants and the team created kind of two plans that are that aren't plans that are supposed to be implemented, but that are supposed to point out options that could be done. So, for example, an important piece would be some sort of pedestrian bridge across the tracks themselves, so that it's easier and quicker and more pleasant to get from the station to the areas west and east. You'll find that in both of them. This would be kind of this is just an illustration of what that kind of raised pedestrian bridge could look like. And then again, moving toward Vine Street, kind of fronting toward Vine Street more with the station and creating a presence there so that it's more of an iconic station and a more pleasant environment on Vine Street. With that, we did take this to the Planning Commission for a public hearing to talk about adoption into the general plan as an amendment. The Planning Commission on July 18th did recommend to the City Council, or did vote to recommend to the City Council that you approve this plan as an amendment to the general plan. Do you have any questions for staff at this point? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll now open the public hearing to the general public on this matter. Anyone have any questions or desire to speak? State your name and your city of residence.
My name is Tim Harper. I actually live in South Jordan. I own 2 properties just to the north of 4800 on Commerce Drive. A few years ago, when they were redoing the zoning and things like that, I was a little concerned because the zoning was going to be changed, and they actually held it at 4800 South northward, stayed the same zoning as the MGC zoning area, and then the area southward changed. And my concern is that's really a unique area that you have here for businesses to come and have their businesses here in the middle of the valley, and to be able to run that. And his comment on having people work, when you have certain businesses, you can't just pick a city and have people from that city come work for you. They work all over. So yeah, it's nice to have transportation to get those people coming and different things from out of the area. But my big concern is I've seen some of those houses, or not houses, but some of the property to the south. They have harder time selling now because of the rezoning. And if you rezone from 4800 South, you're going just up a few blocks right in the middle from 48 to 45th, and you're kind of cutting and zigzagging through the neighborhood, picking different areas you want to kind of leave out. And I kind of have a hard time that the neighbor could have a different zoning than I do, and yet they could sell to a lot more different people than what I could, because I'm in a different area. And so therefore, my property value actually goes down, and it's harder to sell. And, it's been great. I've owned these properties for years in Murray. I love Murray. I used to live off of Gordon Lane years ago. I don't know if any of you were here a few years ago when they were doing that changing or not, but I appreciated very much the council and the mayor at the time holding that line at 4800 South and that zoning area northward to the MGC. And I hope that can happen again. I know these seems like they're reaching out for every little bit they can for possibly more housing or what they're, and trying to just sneak up that block again. But I would definitely appreciate that being held at 4800 South like it was, and just keeping that MGC zoning staying the same there, because it is a very unique, very positive area to be able to work from. Instead of having to go clear out of the way in another area and driving another 20 minutes out west to try to come back, just really causes harm to a small business. All right. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and good luck on whatever you decide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
My name is Braden Weir. I'm a resident of Murray. I just have 2 questions in particular about the pollution that is left over from the smeltery. The first question is, has there been any study for the rehab of that soil? And just if that is even feasible cost-wise? Because it relates to my second question of, has there also been a study if there are any aquifers that are running below that area? Because as designers, I'm going into architecture, and a lot of what we're looking at doing now is trying to have additional permeability on sites and rainwater retention on sites. And if that becomes a reality on a polluted site, all that rainwater is going to collect the pollutants and take that down further into the soil, which could affect our water supply. So I was interested to see if those things have been considered.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else choose to speak? Okay.
My name is Jason Tyson. I'm a resident of Murray. With the building of the new firehouse on 48th and Box Elder, and the proposal to make Hanover and Box Elder one way, has there been studies on what's going to be the traffic impact? Because that's through a completely residential area with lots and lots of kids, and it's already an Audubon. The city put in a sign with a radar detector on it, and every day I can sit out there and watch every car go by and make that thing flash more than 25. In fact, when we were coming here today, I saw it hit 50 and peg out from 2 motorcycles coming down the street. So I think you need to be careful about watching what the residents are going to do in that north part, because there's a lot of kids. In my 10 immediate neighbors, there's at least a dozen kids, including my own. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any others? Okay, we had Jared. We had a question regarding the cleanup status. Can you respond to that?
Sure, it's a good question. So the cleanup site, there was back in, you guys would know the dates better than me. Years ago, there was a big remediation on the site. Soils were cleaned up, and some soils were cleaned up to a certain degree and then capped there on site. There are monitoring wells all around that area. It's called the Smelter Site Overlay District. Murray City and a couple of other entities, the Utah Department of Environmental Quality and the EPA, monitor those wells, check them regularly for water quality to make sure nothing that's been capped in the repository. It's not like we just spread it around and put asphalt over it. It's in an actual repository that's lined, et cetera. So they monitor those wells to make sure nothing's ever leaking. So it's not that it's not safe, but new development could impact that. But the repository itself is actually mapped pretty well. So any new development would stay out of the repository completely, and that would stay parking lot or maybe at the most a parking structure. So yeah, that'll be a careful concern as in modern development or in newer development in that area. But it's all monitored and studied. There were studies done about removing it from the site, complete remediation. That was passed over back in the day because of cost and timing, et cetera. That could be looked at in the future. UTA may look at that in the future or something, but right now that's not really something on the table. It was simply too costly. Even in the face of lucrative development, it still just doesn't bear out the costs. So right now it's pretty much staying the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Jared.
Sure.
Okay, we'll now close the public portion of the hearing and come to the council for discussion and questions.
Yeah, a couple of things, and it'll maybe go along with answering a couple of the public comments. I sit on the Central Valley Water Reclamation Facility Board right now, and that plant's currently being rebuilt, and in there, in digging trenches for running new utilities, they ran into uranium. It's the old Vitro tailing site. And I think they're 3-yard bags that we had to fill up to mitigate that, and it was $3,000 a bag to take it out to EnviroCare. The total hit on the facility was $2 million just to remediate that soil. It's prohibitively expensive to take some of that stuff out, which is why it was capped in place. It is lined with geotechnical material, so it can't leach into the groundwater. And again, as Jared said, to prove that, we have monitoring wells just to make sure. And there are very, very strict rules about what you can and cannot do in that area as far as even breaching the cap. Most of the parking areas and Intermountain Medical Drive are parts of the capped areas. So when you look at this plan, you'll actually see that there's very little going around the hospital because of that. And we find this, when your past was 17 smelters, you're going to find stuff if you dig in the ground. So just don't dig a hole in Murray and you're in great shape. And the other is, we've Councilmember Cox and I are the chair and vice chair of the redevelopment agency, and we've requested a traffic study. My concern is the same. Murray Crossing hasn't opened yet. I use Poplar or Box Elder a lot to get to Vine Street, so I can cut down over the bridge that everybody thinks goes nowhere, but really goes quite a long ways, and there's never any traffic on it, so don't use it. But traffic now on Vine Street is backed up from State Street clear around the corner down to the hospital now. And if we do the Main Street extension, which is, again, that's more of a state study that suggests extending Main Street to get traffic off of State Street. And we're doing one-way streets, so we impacted the Hanover, Box Elder neighborhoods the least amount possible. But I'm concerned that from Vine Street back, you have 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 48th South, and then you have smaller cross streets between the Hanover and Box Elder all the way to 45th South. The concern is not how much traffic it can handle, but when do the intersections fail and people can no longer move through there easily. And with us relocating our fire station and our police station to, coincidentally enough, Box Elder and Hanover, I'm very concerned about intersection failure, because then it becomes a public safety issue because cars can't get through. So yes, a traffic study will be done in the area. Murray Crossing is already built. It's a very large facility, and we haven't yet seen that open. So we don't know, and it's something that weighs heavily on my mind for what we do in the downtown. I think ultimately we'll find out we can't build really big buildings because traffic would be a nightmare. So those are my concerns about this plan too. Is we're cramming a lot more people into an area where I don't think we can get flow through it. The nice part is it's just a plan, and there's a whole lot more involved before you get to the building stage. But again, to answer the questions on the environmental, we've looked at it. I think it would be prohibitively expensive to move it and make it go away. And we will get a traffic study done. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
All right, I will move to adopt the ordinance related to land use. It amends the general plan to include a small area plan for the Murray Central Station area.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. Jennifer?
Aye.
I'll say aye, but I hope that future councils, because I'm done in 3 months, will keep an eye on this and maybe make some changes as they realize what's going on.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That concludes matter number 3. We'll now move on to item number 4. Consider an ordinance relating to land use amends the general plan from commercial to mixed use for the property located at 4670 South, 900 East, Murray City, Utah. Melinda Greenwood presenting, Kimball Associates is the applicant.
All right, we're in the last quarter. So this, as Councilmember Konski said, is for a general plan amendment. Actually, it looks like we did not update this particular slide from the 27th, where this was also accompanied by a zone map amendment. I want to also just say thank you to Kimball Associates, the applicant, and to the public who is here this evening for this item should have been included in the agenda on the 27th of August as well. It was inadvertently left off, and so some of you may be here for this evening, and kind of our apologies on bringing you back in. But appreciate your patience with us, as we wanted to make sure that all of the appropriate steps were taken and the application was completed as it was submitted to us. So this is for a general plan amendment to go from general commercial to mixed use. The property address is 4670 South 900 East. It's 10.5 acres, and it's most commonly referred to as the old Kmart site. Here's just an area. You can see here we've got, let's see if that's, oh, it is working, okay. We've got 9th East over here, and then further down we've got Van Winkle. This right here is where the old Kmart was located. This slide shows the current zoning, which is the commercial. Actually, that's not entirely true. This was the current zoning as of April 26th. With the action that was taken on April 27th, actually this portion has already been rezoned to the mixed use. So we're working a little bit backwards here, as generally general plan amendments are done first, and then a zone map amendment would be done after the fact, as the general plan is kind of what informs those decisions. This particular rezone and general plan amendment request was one of the first that we really, as staff, considered supporting. The general plan was last updated in 2017, and so staff supporting this rezone and the general plan amendment really is indicative of the fact that we are recognizing as a city the changing face of retail and those commercial developments, and the Kmart location had been closed for many years with no other opportunities coming in or other businesses locating there. And especially with across the street from that, there is a big box development already existing. And so as we took a look at this from our perspective, we felt like it was appropriate to look at rezoning the property to be able to include other uses on there apart from just the commercial. So again, on August 27th, 2019, the council did approve the zone map amendment, and this property is now zoned mixed use. This just shows our future land categories, where it shows in the red that this was slated to be general commercial. We've changed it to the mixed use, and so now we just want to make sure we go back and have that general plan be congruent with the zoning that we have changed it to. Here's just a couple of other looks. Our views of the property. We've got a larger aerial site that shows the area around there, Van Winkle, 900 East. Looking at the property, you can tell that it's very vacant, not a lot going on there. So this was held, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 18th, 19, forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. Again, on the 27th, the City Council, you did approve the zone map amendment. The general plan amendment was not included in that action, but based on these findings, the redesignation of the future land use map for the subject property as requested is in keeping with patterns of development in the area, which does currently include a mix of residential and commercial uses. Second, the proposed zone map from... Are these the right findings for the zoning, or for the general plan amendment? Are they both the same for both? Okay. Okay. All right. I want to make sure I was... Okay, so the proposed amendment from the zone map from commercial to mixed use is supported by the description and the intent for the general plan, or for the general commercial land use designation, which recognizes appropriateness of the mixed use developments, including higher density, multifamily housing, and general commercial designation. The requested amendments to the future land use map and zoning map have carefully been considered based on characteristics of the site, surrounding area, and the policies and objectives outlined in the 2017 general plan. And we do believe they are in harmony with this plan. So staff recommendation is to kind of retroactively or to now kind of just approve the general plan amendment so that the general plan would be in harmony now with the zone map amendment of having changed that to the mixed use. So if there's any questions, I'd love to try and answer those. I will also say that at the public hearing for the Planning Commission in July, and then 3 weeks ago on the 27th, there were quite a few comments of people in the audience. Some may be here to speak again on that. But there were a variety of concerns, and at this level, what we are looking at is just a general plan amendment. A lot of the concerns that were brought forward to staff would need to be addressed in a future phase of the development process, where when an application actually comes in, or if we were to go to a conditional use public hearing, is when a lot of those elements would be addressed versus at this level where we're just talking about a general plan amendment.
Any questions for Melinda? Okay, we'll open the public hearing now to the general public. If anyone choose to share or ask questions, come forward to the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Make sure and state your name and city of residence.
Hi, I'm Steve Anamoto.
And Steve, you'll need to fill out a format.
Not yet.
When you're done, get one, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm actually in Mill Creek. We're in that little balloon community that is considered Mill Creek. A couple of the things that I have questions about, it seems like we're moving forward without our understanding of the level of development that's going to be entailed here, and whether or not the infrastructure has been taken into consideration regarding the sewer, especially because of we're in a geographically isolated area that has a special sewer consideration. And the same thing would go for our Jordan Valley water supply and various other infrastructure questions that would be necessary to bring high-density housing into play.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
That would be my top
All right.
question.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any more questions? Like to share, ma'am?
Deborah Hoyt. I also live in the Mill Creek City area that's behind the old Kmart property. And just a note on the Kmart property, Kmart did not close until May of 2018. It's only been closed about 18 months at this point, even not quite that much. I've been a resident of the Green Valley subdivision for 41 years. I have two concerns regarding the changes. The street access of the east-west street road labeled 4680 South on the west side of the property and 4705 South on the east side of the property map has been in continuous use to provide access to the Green Valley subdivision for more than 50 years. I request guarantees be made that access will be maintained in perpetuity. Should construction activities necessitate temporary closing of the road, access shall be interrupted for less than 4 hours within any 24-hour period. Upon completion of the project in full, complete access for ingress and egress shall be available to all Green Valley residents at all times. Subdivision covenants for the Green Valley subdivision restrict the height of buildings to 1.5 stories above ground level. To maintain continuity with the neighborhood, new construction should maintain similar height restriction. The setback for buildings exceeding this height should be 100 feet from all boundary lines. Thank you for your consideration of these concerns.
Thank you. Any others?
It's a little extemporaneous on my part.
Your name again?
Ola Robinson. I live in Murray City.
Thank you, Ola.
And the last speaker touched on a subject that I have concerns about in that area, which is, and this is just basically an ignorance question on my part, but are there currently any guidelines in the city of Murray that need to be either got around through this body or through other procedures, or are there procedures in place to limit either the number of units, and I'm assuming there are, and height restrictions? Is there a standard for that? I can see that having a huge impact on the neighbor community. So. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ola. Okay. All right. Seeing no others, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring it to the council for questions and discussion. Council members?
comment on the last comment, Ola. Yes. There are guidelines within the zones that cover pretty much all of that. Access between the subdivision 900 East would be a private property issue, but I would think that anybody with any commercial sense would realize that that access makes sense, because you get a natural flow through the development then that if you close it off you wouldn't have. So frankly, I think it would benefit the new development as well as Ivy Place, which abuts it. I can see it having a very positive impact on Ivy Place. So anyway, those are those two.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Hearing no other discussion or questions, could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance relating to land use that amends the general plan from commercial to mixed use for the property located at 4670 South 900 East in Murray City, Utah.
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. Jennifer?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that brings us to the business items. We have none scheduled. You received a copy of the announcements from Jan from Committee of the Whole. Okay. So we'll now go to the mayor for his report, and if we have any questions of the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing this evening. We're in preparation for the 2020 census. I just wanted to let you know that our GIS staff has submitted the city's address data to the federal government, and they're also working to compile and submit addresses for residential units that are currently under construction, so they'll be included in the census. And as you all well know, the state and cities are awarded federal funds based on population, so participation in the census is very important to us, and we're working hard to provide accurate data and then make that a top priority. And I just wanted to note that Census Day is Wednesday, April 1st, 2020.
Okay. I appreciate you're counting the homes that are under construction now. They'll be counted, huh?
Yes.
That's great, because I have 3 major developments in my council district alone. I think it'll be very helpful to include those. Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor?
Yes, I have a question. My question is based on a question that I received while I was attending the Utah League of Cities and Towns. There were a few of us from council and a few from the mayor's office that attended this conference, and it's put on by the Utah, like I said, Utah League of Cities and Towns, which is a lobbying group which represents most of the cities in Utah, including Murray. And on Friday, there was a resolution portion where there were 2 resolutions that were put up for the voting lobby, which again, like I said, represents each of the cities and towns. And I was asked by a person in attendance why you didn't vote for the resolution on improving Utah's air quality. What I was told is that you voted no. I was not there, so I couldn't have provided input or anything. But I would like to ask why you voted no on that resolution. And I have it here. My understanding is that it passed, and it looks to me like it's a really good resolution. So that's my question.
Okay. The reason that I voted against it, as I stated in my comments on Friday, is that I wasn't comfortable with the wording in number 2 that basically asked for more state and federal regulation. I don't think that we need more state and federal regulation, especially as we're looking at what we're doing on our buildings that we're building. I think that I think that there are other ways to address these issues. My no vote wasn't against clean air. It was against that wording in the resolution. So.
Okay. But nevertheless, you were representing Murray, and you did vote no.
Yes, I did, and I was the only voting member there, so I voted. I had all the votes, so if there had been other voting members there, the votes would have been split.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate that. And Mayor, thank you. Any other business? Okay, we'll stand adjourned.